Uh, that's right. Don't be offended. The stark gentleman that you see in the thumbnail is becoming the norm and not the exception in a Title I school environment. As gang culture continues to rapidly spread over social media faster than the anti-life virus and the deceased storyline, our youth is aspiring for sagging pants and drill rap recognition. Now, you may be thinking, there's no teaching this guy. But you're wrong, my friend. I've done it for 9 years and more post-COVID. As NBA Youngboy continues to be a middle school staple, you will eventually have to teach him, especially if you're in a Title I campus. I remember when I saw this opener and the very well-acted Morgan Freeman lean on me. I think I was like 10 or 11 at the time. This particular imagery always seems to be glossed over by the audience. Because of YouTube guidelines, I'm gonna have to explain what happens. The brave gentleman attempts to break up a fight when suddenly he is knocked over by a gang member. And this is the late 80s, mind you. After being knocked down, the bright and hopeful youth continues to coconut crack this poor teacher's head into the floor until his skull leaks into the towel. Fortunately, the school system was kind enough to identify the teacher as a victim while our bright future continues to haunt the hallways without the violence ever truly being addressed. You see, ladies and gentlemen, what 1989 showed us is the inevitable problem we will have to confront in the present. And it's funny how life continues to imitate art, even modestly, in 2023. Hollywood visuals like this is what discouraged me from ever seeking classroom career opportunities. But when I sought direction from Jesus Christ above on what to do with my professional life, this surprisingly was his plan. Now I'm 9 years deep and I wouldn't have it any other way. And through my trials and tribulations in the school system, I learned a thing or two about teaching of what society would label as thugs as young men and ladies, surprisingly, go through the goon grinder in their neighborhood. So let's talk about it. First off, this video is not an analysis digging into the psyche or a historical highlight of gang members and their affiliations in the public school system. The purpose of today's media is to simply share my own expertise interacting with youth with dependence from violence because of their gang affiliation and how to equip teachers in these environments with social tools to navigate the terrain with similar youth. The rise of this video's thumbnail's archetype is a culmination of several things. Extreme poverty, fatherlessness, and one that doesn't often get stated is poor mothering. Despite economic conditions, people forget that you can still be a parent doing your best to make choices that guide the children in the way that they should go so that they do not depart from it. Alas, that is a topic for another video, which conveniently I made one for you that you can actually check out right after this one. These students, who many are considering to be emergent criminals in the school system, are predominantly young minority males who have inherited an overtly chaotic nature and acting destruction when they are angry or expressing other emotional turbulence. Ideally, the father should be the standard for young men on how to manage their emotions. And if there is no father and the mother is emotionally unstable, the boys will model after that. This, combined with the decaying culture influencing youth behavior, and you just have a recipe for all sorts of disaster. Boys who do not have the ideal moral prototype for attitude adjusting will be controlled and led by every emotional whim that arises from within inside of them. While I do agree that boys need to get in touch with their emotions, it's not in the way that society likes to romanticize it to happen. A more social matriarchal system will strive to instill that male consoling should just be about talking about their feelings, when in reality that same system subconsciously sees it as a weakness, thus eventually not able to handle a response, soon to cast these young men off as defective little girls. This is why proper mentoring is necessary, and I do mean proper, as you cannot just bring any man around your child. I have that same belief in the school system. We see this in the rising influence of older men who are raised this way and violently rapping about it in their music, for example. The excuse is always, man, we're just reporting what we experience, what we see on these here streets, in hopes to exonerate rappers of all influential responsibility in their music. But in these futile efforts to quote-unquote feed their families off of rap music, my culture is willing to destroy a generation at the cost of lining one's pocket to feed that same family, which is just a euphemism for achieving a lavish lifestyle one feels entitled to. As rap slowly decays into drill music, manhood aspirations become demonic, and these teens who physically become older will negatively affect generations under them triggering their most primitive instincts. This also affects young girls as well, who will confuse strong masculinity as being physically aggressive, unnecessarily violent, and dang near an assassin, just because this also appeals to the primitive side of a young girl's emotions. He's unpredictable, dangerous, the embodiment of an adrenaline rush that knows no bounds, is what the girls would actually think. These same girls will get with these loose cannons and reproduce the same cycle that needs to actually be destroyed. On the flip side, if these girls aren't trying to date a wild card, then they are merely adopting the violent behavior created through the gang culture, channeling its tendencies. Some of these young ladies are risking their lives participating in gang activity and ending up lifeless as a result. This morbid attraction is costing them. Ruthless male teens are mowing down young women, disregarding that pubescent girls need a high order of protection. And if no one teaches young men early how to properly care for women and children, then there will be casualties of war no matter what age or gender is always acceptable. These little details will affect you as a teacher, because if you teach in a Title I environment, I guarantee that it's going to show up soon at your doorstep. And unfortunately, many won't have any clue on how to actually confront it. But concern not. I want to provide you tools through my experience on how to still build relationships that will eventually give you success in the classroom, even with this class of students. Are you a teacher trying to quit teaching? Get TubeBuddy, get on YouTube, and ease the pain of beginner YouTube struggles. TubeBuddy will help you drastically reduce the learning curve of video creation for YouTube. Secure that escape route from public education and build an additional income source using YouTube while making things easier with TubeBuddy. Discount link in the pinned comment below. Now, the first strategy we're going to get into is negotiate with caution. This was originally titled No Negotiations, but considering my own personal experience, I've had to negotiate with students depending on what outcome I actually wanted to achieve. I'm pretty sure you've seen in movies civilians grabbing their nards, instructing powerful criminals that they don't negotiate with the likes of them.
We're not intimidated by thugs.
And they're right. You shouldn't negotiate with people who demonstrate tendencies to take penitentiary chances. Unfortunately, these unsavory fellows will see it as a weakness. It subconsciously shows defiant teens that they have a power over your every situation, and will use it to their benefit. And there's no respect in that. Bargaining deals to achieve classroom peace will only imprison you to an expectation you won't get released from. If you do X, I'll give you Y. Or if you behave this way today, I'll do XYZ for you later. This sort of interactive signals to the other party that you were always a flunky to begin with and not a teacher. You, my friend, will be at their mercy like a sniveling worm crawling to them crying, "Please be good just for today," hoping they don't influence your class. Again, negotiate with caution. Students like this vie for power, wasting your time and theirs unaware. And when these types of students don't get what they want, then the deal is off, and that's bad news for you. The next strategy is stand strong and be firm. In my early years of teaching, I would hear this advice over and over again. Be firm. Don't let them see you weak. These sharks smell blood at the beginning of the school year. And this advice is a fundamental truth. It's later followed by March, you can begin to ease your foot on the gas pedal, give them a little break, if you catch the pun there. However, in a chaotic classroom, easing is non-existent. To thrive, consistency is critical, managing students with rebellious tendencies. Kids liking you is a lie from the pit of hell. You don't need that for success. Talk to Aretha. You're going to need some R-E-S-P-C-T. When ruffians challenge your authority, and they will, view it as an opportunity to stand your ground and cement your position. I'll give you an example. A middle schooler may come into your room refusing to work because he didn't bring his supplies. But of course, what student equips themselves with school supplies these days? Here's what not to do. Coddle the lad by being a supplier. There's a such thing as toxic charity, where you transition from gratitude to entitlement, and students fall into this trap all the time. Man, don't reduce yourself to becoming their secretary offering, "Here's your pencil, Mr. Demon Time star pupil." With that, you'll look like someone who had their spine ripped from them as you engage in mortal combat with these teens. Don't show fear or let anyone see you sweat. If you work in an environment where you feel standing firm will only reward retaliation, having your car broken into, then you need to go above your admin's head if they will not support you for legal protection. If that's the case, documentation is key, and not for lames who believe that the written word is pointless. Keeping a paper trail is not a cliche. It protects you, and if you need to seek a local law enforcement because your school is not doing what needs to be done to keep you working in a safe environment, then that may be a route you may want to take. But overall, follow through and don't get punked by anyone. The next strategy is build bridges. Sometimes we as adults will have to humble ourselves to walk on the other side where the students are at. Building a bridge isn't about the student coming to you, at least not at first. Initially, you will cross over to meet them where they are. This may mean taking an interest in maybe some shady dealings that they're into sometime in their personal life. From my experience, students will eventually come to where you are after some shared transparency on your end. Now, this doesn't have to be releasing your deepest, darkest secrets and closeted business. With proper discretion, relate any experience that shows you're human and willing to apologize when appropriate. Read the room to see what's right. Young men will open up to me about their gang situations because I demonstrated a genuine interest in what they were going through, asking the right questions at the right time. Simple inquiries like, "Hey man, missed you yesterday, what happened?" Those words combined with an care for you tone will win these young men over to you at any given point, and young women. Eventually, students will have me pull up Google Maps to show where and when things was happening around the neighborhood. Resisting the urge to preach generic platitudes and engage in empathetic dialogue goes a long way. All this still has to be done while drawing a line in the sand to enforce boundaries between yourself and the students to avoid confusing professional concern with emotional investment. Unfortunately, most of today's teens do not have the tools to properly handle their feelings regarding social engagements, and if they feel as if they're close to you, then this can mean trouble for your career and, more importantly, your reputation. The next strategy is controlling your class. Middle school students in general are constantly looking for shortcuts and opportunities to distract you away from what matters. Don't try to teach in chaotic environments. Confront their attempts to loophole your lesson instruction briefly and move forward. If you harp on an issue for too long, students will tune you out or use your soapbox in enticing you into a power struggle. Avoid idle time at all costs. It is a progenitor to all sorts of problems. I'm speaking from firsthand experience. Usually administrators prohibit teachers from keeping students busy for the sake of being busy, but sometimes that's your only go-to. Always remember that busy work is greater than idle time. High at-risk behavior students fester in idle time. Every minute of your instruction needs to be accounted for. Since I've only taught troubled middle school youth, I can vouch for the 45-minute classroom span. And what I've come to learn over the years is that a student's patience shrinks daily. It's more than just attention shortening, but it's a growing need to replace the absent stimulation garnered from these devices and apps with something that rivals it in the classroom. Now, I'm not telling you have to be an edutainer, but you have to think outside the box to ensure someone is learning something. In this video, I talked about working backwards, providing the assignment activity first, and then finding windows of opportunity to teach within those moments. Verbal instruction is a no-bueno even for talks under a minute. If I'm not TikTok dancing, squirting water on a clown from a pocket flower, or holding a lecture from talking sock puppets, students ain't trying to hear you talk at all. And ironically, for video to be a popular form of media, it has to fit the middle schooler's narrative of fun. And for Title I schoolers, we're talking about inappropriate themed adult material. Now, many school districts have moved away from having behavior experts and disciplinarians on site in favor of relying on best instructional practices to usher in campus serenity. If that is the case for your campus, then accept the reality and proceed amicably, knowing the challenges you have to face. It is literally your boring activity versus the dangers and excitements of the secular world televised through social media. At the end of the day, you tell me which one will have the higher chance of succeeding. The next strategy is come in peace. Leave your pity and bias at the front door. If you're at a Title I campus, leave the whole "you poor babies" mentality at home. Don't get me wrong, it's noble to come from a different background and try to understand others, but don't start guilt tripping yourself because of your own upbringing. If you come from a two-parent household, but working with a community where single parenting is celebrated, do not start feeling shame or apologizing for your distinction. Make no excuses for the excellence your parents demand of you if they did demand excellence, and carry that same expectation for your students. I've seen more affluent adults work at schools trying to buy their students' affection rather than instill beneficial social characteristics in them. And since we're talking about schools where super criminals are the model of perfection for a lot of youth, then you really have to abandon assumptions and find a difference in each and every student. At the end of the day, if all else fails, simply quit and move on. At this point, there is no shame in throwing in a towel. Times are hostile, and this profession isn't for everyone. This messaging is for those who want to get better at reaching students, becoming gang affiliated, striving to plant seeds. But I'll be honest, there's a shelf life to being in this environment. Considering how the good Lord will allow you to endure with your soul going dark, dealing with the profanity outbursts and groups of students jumping on others, it's only a matter of time before you have to seek employment elsewhere. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to leave teaching altogether, but you may want to simply go to another district to teach an even easier subject. Who knows? I've only done 2 subjects in my career: ELAR and technology applications. I've also left the profession once, always developing digital skills outside the classroom to keep my experience expansive. And if you are that person looking for a life after teaching, there's about 8 digital careers I can teach you how to break into right here in this video.